speaker today is President of Rotary International. You have a little brochure on your table if you want to read about it. He told me not to say any of that stuff and to tell you that he joined Rotary when he was 21 years old. And he built a business that is #1 in the world with tea packaging. His company produces 100 million tea bag labels a day. Now, the reason for him saying this was not to brag. The reason for him saying this is because he was #1 in his business and he is #1 in Rotary. And that anybody that says they do not have time to join Rotary, that they can't run their business and still participate in Rotary, he says, poppycock. It's possible, and you can do all that. So with that simple introduction, I give you Rotary International President Ravi.
President Marsha, distinguished guests, very distinguished Rotarians. It's a very, very tight timing act that we have today. We got in an hour ago. We got to leave in a little while to JFK, where we bought a flight to Singapore. And I was a little sorry that I turned up 5 minutes late to meet this wonderful group of past governors. But I was being entertained upstairs by your future president. It's so nice to listen to him. It's not too many days before we hand over our office as president. And people often ask me, so you know, it's a powerful person, isn't it? Have you felt the power? To be honest, I felt no power at all. I'm just someone who represents you there, and I'm trying to look after your interests up there on the board. But I can tell you I did feel the power about 10 days ago, and it's the only time when I really felt powerful being president, was when a staff member came to me and said, President Ravi, I need your help. You have to help me somehow. And that was very unusual for staff to walk up to me, and I said, yes, what can I do? And she said there was a child in Mongolia, 1.5 years old, and reminded me of my grandchild, who had just learning to walk, and she went and tugged at a tablecloth and put on herself some boiling water that was there, and burned 70%. And she had 2 days' time. They couldn't handle her in Mongolia, 2 days perhaps before she would succumb to the injuries. So I said, what do you want me to do? I said, try and get her into the United States. We have to get her into Shriners Hospital. So I said, Mongolia, I mean, what can I do in Mongolia? No, there must be Rotary clubs there. So I called the president. It was 5 o'clock in the evening. I got through to the Hong Kong governor, Peter Pang, got him on mail and described the situation and said, I know Mongolia is under your area, and you somehow get to the airline. The airlines don't take people who are so critically ill. Use the clout that you people have. Get her on this flight somehow. I'm told she's got a 10-year visa into the US, so that shouldn't be a problem. And that was 5. Then of course I went off, I went to sleep, and next morning at 4:45, when I got back to my mail, I saw a stream of email exchanges between Mongolia and Hong Kong. And to cut a long story short, that child was on a plane at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, arrived at Chicago, cleared by Shriners, and as of today, she's still alive. So that's the power of Rotary that I felt, the only time. The power of the position. But I'm glad to be here in York. It's an honor, really, and I wish I could have spent more time here, because when I start meeting all of you, I sort of forget the time, and it's so enjoyable to meet people like you, and I'm particularly happy I met my old friend Varun Trichulam, whom I last saw 40 years ago in school, wearing half pants, I think, both of us. So it's a moment in history for me too to be part of this wonderful city and listening to these great distinguished leaders that you have up here. You know, a city of 40,000 to have a club of over 300 is quite phenomenal. On that ratio, if the others did their work, we would be 3 times our size. Unfortunately, they don't do that. And when we celebrated our centennial, Rotary Centennial 10 years ago, when the president gets invited to a centennial of a club, he would accept nearly all the invitations. Now it's becoming a little difficult. I get something like anything from 10 to 20 invitations a day. And there was a special reason why I chose to come here, because I thought you are a club with, as I said, in a city of 40,000, 300 plus members, but more than that, you are a near 100% foundation supporting club. And that's really worthwhile. Not many clubs like this, certainly of your size, 24th largest in the world. I'm an honorary member of another club here in the US, Birmingham, Alabama. They have something like 650 or 660 members. And the camaraderie and the networking that large clubs do, and the ability to, the type of, the nature of the projects that you can do, nobody else can match. And I'm a great advocate of large clubs. And I hope with the help of these people, your 300 will get to 600 in the next few years. You'll be surprised in the United States. In the United States, there are still clubs who refuse to bring in women. You know, standing by this whole thing of we are over my dead body type of attitude. And I'm glad you have changed and you got a wonderful president here as an example. I have told these clubs who don't bring women in, I said, you better change your name to Rotary Club of Jurassic Park because you're going to die again. And I told them that, I actually said this in a speech in Great Britain. I said, you go back and tell your members that they can order your tombstone now, because the next 10 years you'll be dead, and you can engrave on the tombstone, I refuse to bring in a woman. 10 years ago, when we met for the centennial, the world has changed so much from the time Rotary was started. I don't know how many of you have been to our headquarters in Ravindran. It's a beautiful building we have. But more importantly, in the ground floor, we have created a replica of Paul Harris's original office with the window where you look out and you see all those old cars going and so on. Beautiful piece of, it's a very nice creation. And I hope you'll be able to see it. But truly at that time, 1914-15, when we started, there wasn't much to talk about. There were 120 clubs in the first 10 years. It's really 1916, when you started, that Rotary started taking off. I mean, in the next 10 years, it doubled to 250, and then it doubled again in the next 2 years. And then, of course, we went into the war and had a bit of a stagnant period, but then it just took off after that. In 1916, we were known as the International Association of Rotary Clubs, and we had our office in downtown Chicago in Michigan Street. We had 10 employees then. They used to issue charters, they managed the correspondence, they edited the magazine, the National Rotarian had 12 pages, and much of it was essays of Paul Harris. Of course, today things have changed. We have 10 offices around the world. We have 800 employees. We have 1.3 million Rotarians, so 1,290,000 to be precise now. Our membership has gone up by almost 29,910 from the 1st of July last year. So we are on the right track. I mean, when I look at the differences, 1916, we had typewriters, filing cabinets. Today, our IT staff alone is something like 100, and we bring out the 16-page web, very up to date. In 1916, the president of the San Francisco Club, he took a railway map, and depending on where the trains went, he drew out the various districts. At that time, there were 13 districts. Today, we have 535 districts in 200 countries and geographical regions, which puts us just ahead of the United Nations. So we're in good company. In those days, it's all a question of snail mails and envelopes. I really don't know how they manage. I mean, imagine you send a letter and you wait about 3 months to get a reply. Today it's, you know how it works today. Last month, or was it the month before that, I did a 1-hour Twitter chat. And I was in connection with 1,400 people from 30 countries. Unbelievable, rotractors, alumni, you know, all sorts of people. And all you needed was a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection, sitting anywhere you wanted. Can you imagine that taking place when Rotary was started? I don't know, when I think if Paul Harris was here and he heard of what is happening, he would approve of some things. He may have fainted at other things that are happening at the moment, including some of the changes that we just brought in at the council. But then he was one of those who said you must change with times and you can't sit back relying on, you know, traditions and so on. Traditions are good, but our main tradition is service above self. Everything else is just perfunctory. Types of meetings, meeting place, number of times, etc. And as long as the tradition of service above self is not hampered, I think we need to change. In 1915, it was not surprising that Rotary went international, because that was a period when the world was in turmoil. We were in a collision course virtually to disaster. Before I went into another centennial meeting, I got a copy of the Chicago Tribune, 10th anniversary. And I had a look at the headlines. The headlines had no cause for optimism. Spoke about increased crime in Chicago, not that it's any less now. Corruption in arms sales, inexorable spread of World War I. And I have to be careful when I say this, because some Turks got upset when I read this particular statement. It's a Turkish massacre of Armenians. Turks don't agree with that. That's what the Chicago Tribune said. President Taft says, nation in crisis. Colonel Theodore Roosevelt says, Europe is hip deep in war and the world is bristling with guns. So no one knew what was coming next. And so I'm not surprised that Rotary grew the way it did. In that time of violence and uncertainty, of unprecedented changes, of fear, of war, of new realization that everyone was interconnected. What affected you affected him, what affected one country affected another, and perhaps there was a need for something like Rotary to get together, people of our stature. A club like ours still maintains its profile of members, and there was a need for us to get to know each other and, you know, do our own little piece. And I ask you now, how different is it now? I think we virtually have a similar situation, whether it's North Korea, whether it's China, whether it's Mr. Putin, we have some uncertainty. You see the papers, apart from the, you know, if I may use the word, sort of circus that goes on here with your politics, the rest of the world is in turmoil again, submarines, and it's quite fearful really. So I'm not surprised that Rotary is growing again. Went through a period of decline, we are growing, and we're still way ahead of any other organization. Today, I personally feel very, very proud that I belong to an organization which makes the world not poorer, but richer, which replaces despair with hope, which raises up those whom fate has brought low, and which serves as a gift to so many, in so many places across the world, allowing each of us literally to be a gift to the world. It wasn't a coincidence that I came up with the theme of being a gift to the world. So, as you finish 100 years, I want to tell you that a new century awaits you. It's a century full of promise. And you are now ready to write the first chapter in your second volume. And the pages are empty. And your pen is now poised to write. And you now have to decide whether you're going to live on your past laurels, on your past glories, or you're going to write of generous deeds that will come in the future of ambition, of responsibility, of work done well, and a life well lived. Or, on the other hand, you can just let one day follow another. You can let each one be alike, unremarkable. In their coming, they will be hardly noticed. In their passing, they will be hardly missed. But remember that each moment of our life is a gift. And I have this philosophy that you must live as though you will die tonight. And you must plan as though you live 100 years. And you know, if you think that you're going to die tonight, your whole perception to life changes. You don't fight with your siblings for $50. You don't fight over a small piece of land. The whole perception changes. And I find it's a philosophy that has stood me well. Sometimes it goes wrong. I mean, I took my company public in 1995 on the philosophy that if I died, my wife with 2 small children would never be able to manage. So she must be able to sell her shares. But I didn't die, and now I regret why I'm in public. so occasionally it doesn't work. But generally it's a good philosophy to have. And I want you to remember that each moment is a gift. Each minute is a gift. And if the gift it's a choice that you have, as your own famous countryman, Reverend Martin Luther King said, you can walk in the appearance of creative selflessness, or you can walk in the darkness of destructive selfishness. So choice is yours, selfishness, selflessness. And that's what we have to decide. So Rotary gives us a choice. Rotary gives us a choice to be able to run our businesses, our professions, and also to do what we are doing now. I want you to know that charity is not about just giving donations. Charity in its purest form is more than that. Charity is giving with our hearts, with our minds, with our talents, with our energies. And charity is giving in a way where everyone is enriched, the rich and the poor. And charity really is love in working clothes. There was a famous Greek philosopher. His name was Maimonides. And many years ago, he wrote about the 8 levels of charity. And he said the first and the lowest level of charity was to give, but to give reluctantly. That's a gift of the hand, not of the heart. The next level higher is to give, but not give in proportion to what the need was. Next level. Third level was to give sufficiently, but not give till you are asked. The fourth level was to give sufficiently, give before you are asked, but to put it in your hand, thus evoking in the receiver a sense of obligation. The fifth level is to give in a way where the receiver knows who the donor is, the donor doesn't know who the receiver is. Like, for example, if you endow a scholarship in your name and give it to a school, they know the scholarship is in your name. You don't know who is receiving it. The next highest level is to give where you know who the receiver is, the receiver doesn't know who you are. It's like, where you give an anonymous donation, scholarship, you do something for someone, you know where it's going, but he doesn't know where it came from. The seventh level, much higher, is where the receiver and the donor don't know each other. Like when you give the Rotary Foundation, you don't know where your money goes. It may go to Papua New Guinea, it may go to Argentina, it may go to any part of the world, or it could go just next door and you still don't know it. And the highest level of charity is to anticipate a problem and then deal with it, like what we're doing with polio. So Rotary really gives you a chance to reach that highest level of charity as defined by the old Greek philosopher Maimonides. So in Rotary, I feel that we find ways to help others, and Rotary allows people like us to come in, join, because we feel that life, if we do not do this in our part-time, we want to be professional in part-time, our lives are less valid. People who come to Rotary are people who feel that their own lives have less merit unless you are willing to contribute some part of your life for the benefit of others. There are people who feel that their role on earth is less meaningful, and people with ordinary abilities like myself, average people, by joining Rotary, you are able to extend your reach. You are able to do things which are impossible to do alone. And I can personally tell you of some great stories of what has happened to what Rotary has done in my own country, which none of us could have done alone, where I would say thousands have benefited. Some people, of course, while we joined Rotary, we got our businesses, we got our families, we got other things to do. Some people would take the idea the furthest limits. And they are they dedicate their lives to this. They are the Mahatma Gandhis, the Martin Luther Kings, the Nelson Mandelas, and the Mother Teresas. And I don't know whether some of you read this story. I wrote in the Rotarian magazine about Mother Teresa a few months ago. She, to me, is my all-time favorite. Albanian by blood, Indian by nationality, a Catholic nun by faith, a world citizen by calling. She speaks 5 languages, amazing lady. I've had some interactions with her, and if you asked her what is the main job you do, she would say cleaning a toilet, because she truly believed that cleaning a toilet was so important. And when I met her the first time, I was seated there, and there was a door banging behind her every time, and every time the door banged, my eyes went there, and she noticed that, and she looked back and she said, that's my toilet door. And you could see it was a very, very ordinary door. It wasn't anything to, you could see it was a very ordinary toilet inside. And then she smiled and she said, son, to serve the poor, you must live like the poor. And it reminds me of a story I read once, how when Mother Teresa went to Albania after an earthquake, to a hospital which had been damaged. The first thing she does anyway is go clean the toilets and the public areas. Say she took her sisters of charity, any other volunteers that came along, and she starts with this toilet cleaning work. And when she had finished one toilet and walked out, a person dressed in clothes like this, wearing a tie, etc., came up to her, and she looked up and said, "You're another volunteer." Gave him a bucket, gave him the mop, and said, told him, "Don't waste water, this is the way you do it," and she went off to office. 20 minutes later, this gentleman came back, now without a jacket, without a tie, collar open, and she said, "Have you finished with the toilet? You want another job?" And he sort of scratched his head and he says, "Mother, I'm the vice president of this airline. I came here to give you your air ticket for tomorrow." But that vice president of that airline says that 20 minutes he spent was the most important 20 minutes in his life. Because he said, for 20 minutes, I became Mother Teresa. And that's what Rotary allows you to do. For 20 minutes, 20 hours, 20 days, we become Mother Teresas, we become Nelson Mandelas, we become Mahatma Gandhis. And that's the benefit of Rotary. So my friends, as you look for the next 100 years, remember what I said. Our time on earth is limited, it's finite, it's short. Our task before us is great. It is not ours to finish this task, but neither are we free to desist from it. And we need to do what we can in order to be a gift to the world. Thank you for having me here and all the